Okay. Just to save Brad and so he doesn't actually murder me, we're going to jump over into our prospect profile, which is none other than German, either winger or centerman, depending on how you look at Tim Stützle. This is our third last one, so we are looking at one of the most likely, or likely, I'd say, Red Wings picks at 4th overall. So this is going to be a pretty significant one. Brad, you kick us off.
Oh, Ryan, you're not going to like me. So likely pick. Nope. I really hate the way we structured this because Pierre Dorion does not like to have fun in games and could not make this interesting for us. I forget, was he on TSN radio today where he basically said, we know what we're going to do depending on what LA is going to do. He basically all but said he's taking Byfield or Stutzle and that there's a clear-cut top 3 and he's not going to do anything crazy radical there. So unless he's a liar or Melnick has a flip after watching Cole Perfetti play or something, let's just get this out of the way. Unless LA takes Drysdale, it doesn't look like the Red Wings are getting Byfield or Stutzle. So sorry to crush everybody's hopes and dreams, but Pierre Dorion sucks. For the one time he doesn't screw something up. Anyways, if the rumor about the Kings and Drysdale being linked are true, though, let's have some fun. So Tim Stützle, we've talked about at length. Fantastic skater, fantastic playmaker. I'll say decent goal scorer, not a great shot, not a great finisher, but good enough, above average. Very creative, very high pace. Just, he's almost like the anti-Perfetti in the sense that they have the same strengths, but they just get from point A to point B very differently. And quite honestly, exactly what the Red Wings need. So if he falls, that would be amazing because I'm not as sold on him playing center as the rest of the world seems to be, but hey, it's an experiment worth having at least. And your worst case scenario is you've got an elite left winger, which is never a bad thing. So what would it mean to the Red Wings if he falls to 3? Well, he's immediately their best prospect, and probably in a few years, he's probably their best player. He's going to be their number 1 scoring threat, or at least points threat, very early on in his career until whenever he moves on, in all likelihood, unless we luck our way into Shane Wright. He is a franchise player in the sense that he is a likely bet to be the best player on the Red Wings if he is drafted. His ceiling should be viewed higher than Dylan Larkin's. If I'm being honest, whoever the hell we pick at 4, their ceiling should be viewed higher than Dylan Larkin's. And if we pick them and you're like, oh yeah, he's good, but he's no Dylan Larkin, then we messed up the pick. That's just the reality of it. So I think that Stutzle falling would be best realistic case scenario. I'm not holding my breath because, again, thanks, Pierre Dorion. You couldn't have at least left the mystery or the hope there. It is what it is. I'm really hoping he's lying to throw a smokescreen to Detroit or something.
Yeah, the reason I don't put too much stock into what Pierre Dorion says is because, first of all, it's Pierre Dorion. Secondly, he works for the Ottawa Senators. And third, there actually is, like you just mentioned, Brad, a vested interest for him to muddy the waters. They're picking at 3, so they're going to have a phenomenal player there. But they aren't going to try and walk away from this to making it well. They're going to try and walk away from this with a king's ransom, and they have an opportunity to do so. So if they can throw some smoke and get Detroit at number 4 to do something to their benefit, and then with 3 and 5, they get their 2 best players, whether that's, Stutzle or Byfield and Raymond, or Stutzle or Byfield and Drysdale, or they want Perfetti, or they want Rossi. Dorion, it does have a cause there to try and muddy those waters. Is that actually what he's doing? I don't know. The old boys in hockey tend to just kind of not do that. They do their bullshitting in different ways, so I don't put too much weight into Dorion's comments today one way or another. Stutzle is regarded as the bona fide third of the top 3 in this draft. I think that is it's not deserved. I do think he's the 3rd best player in this draft in my mind, but I think the margin between him and Raymond, him in like the Raymond, Perfetti, Rossi, Drysdale tier is so thin. Like if Ottawa went and took Raymond third overall, I really could not be surprised or say, oh, that was a reach at all. I think there's a pretty big gap between Stutzle and Byfield in my mind. In terms of when I said he's the most likely to fall, think of our Zadina year, right? That level of, oh my God, we got this guy. Stutzle is the one out of him and Byfield that's more liable to fall. And that's what you mentioned, Brad. LA, and how it would happen is LA taking Drysdale. I think that's just kind of the only way it would come through. But yeah, Tim Stützle, outside of everything you just listed, Brad, like the best skater in the draft, an amazing left winger. He would instantly be Detroit's best prospect, and comes from the same team that Mo Seider did. You have that German connection. I know it doesn't really mean much for stats on the ice, but it has to mean a lot for that, like those two players' development, right? Like having that camaraderie. It's very Russian Fives vibe.
Well, yeah, but this is only going to work if Reichel and Peterka also drop to the second round. So it's possible we could get 4/5 of the way there in 2 drafts, but, you know, maybe the Oilers are trading the MVP. It could happen.
Good. Yeah.
Although that's debatable whether he should have been MVP or not. But
anyway.
anyway.
We didn't even talk about that, eh?
Yeah. Probably for the best. I didn't want to get all riled up again this late at night, but
We'll save the awards for next episode. How about that?
you'll forget. I'll forget. I know it.
Evan won't forget. Evan will remember.
Yes, of course.
Evan, your take on Tim Stützle?
He's a top tier skater. He's got great hands. His shot could use a little bit of work, but as he adds weight, it'll get a lot better. Sometimes I think he overhandles the puck, but he has a relentless motor, and I think he can play center at the NHL level. I think he goes third unless they're super hot on Raymond. That's all I got.
So you're convinced he sticks at center then?
No, but he could. I like his odds.
Between him, Perfetti, and Rossi, like those guys who have played center or do play center but could flip to wing, I do see him as being most likely to stay at center. And that, I think, weighs a lot into his value. They've seen him have success playing center, so that does mean quite a bit. If Stutzle fell to Detroit, I'm not sure I have the same kind of like, holy shit, how did Detroit get this guy reaction as we did when Zadina was drafted. I put him more in the Raymond tier than anything.
Well, when Zadina had to fall 4 spots, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 spots, it just kept compounding for me the holy shit that this is happening. When it's only 1 spot, it's still crazy, but it's not, the snowball isn't as big.
LA taking Drysdale would be my Arizona taking Barrett Hayton holy shit moment.
Yes.
Like, holy shit. Like, are you kidding? So
I think Drysdale would be less of a reach than Hayton was.
He'd be less of a reach, but I think the shock value would be right there. But yeah, again, I don't have that massive of a gap between Byfield and Stutzle and Raymond and Perfetti and Rossi.
Imagine Ottawa getting Byfield and Raymond.
Oh God, it's almost likely.
It's very, very possible.
I would almost bet if I had to do my mock draft based on what I think is going to happen, that's who Ottawa's getting, because we have all the Stutzle to LA connections. Ottawa said they're basically said we're taking whichever one LA doesn't, which would be Byfield. We have all the Perfetti to Detroit connection. There's been Raymond to Ottawa connection. Like, it's not just possible, it's likely.
It all depends what LA does at 2.
LA, like, that's the nice thing about this draft. It's not like we're other years where we say, oh, the draft this year really starts at 4. This year it starts at 5. No, this year it starts at 2. Like, it's Lafreniere, and then we don't know. If they can take Byfield, they can trick.
If Ottawa's not competitive in 3 years, those fans should riot.
They already should have.
Yeah, let's be honest. It has nothing to do with the players on the ice for why
all 12
should
of them.
riot.
Oh, man. All right. Likelihood of Stutzle falling. Hold on. Actually, 2 questions. If Stutzle falls, is that an automatic pick for you with Raymond, let's say Raymond is still on the board. Raymond, Perfetti, Rossi, and Drysdale are all still on the board. Is Stutzle the automatic pick for you? Yes or no?
No.
How about you, Evan?
For me, he is. I would say Raymond's very close, but I like Stutzle's game a little bit better.
I fall more in line with Evan. I do have him ranked so very close, but for me, it's just like, yeah, you can't pass that up. Brad, you're taking Raymond over Stutzle?
I am leaning that. I have been leaning that way for the last few days.
Did we just watch your rankings change in real time?
No, it's. We know we've all been saying it, and I've been saying it for a few months now. How tight I've had Stutzle and Raymond in my rankings, and I think Raymond's really hot start in the SHL this year in the preseason and his first game is pushing him to the forefront, because the only viewings we had of Stutzle was in that 3-game tournament against a pretty weak Swiss team where he wasn't all that impressive. So if early viewings are the tiebreaker, yeah, Raymond has it right now. It's not fair. It's 3 games. It's small sample size. But I had them in a dead heat at the end of last season, or when everything shut down. So I needed something to sway me one way or the other. And right now it's Raymond's winning. And it's hard to say. It's not that I even necessarily think Raymond or Stutzle are better than one or another at this point. It's just that seeing Raymond do it in the SHL is making me feel more comfortable that it will translate.
Yeah, well, I mean, as much as Mo Seider has turned out to be a positive project so far, there's still so much uncertainty drafting out of the DEL, and I recognize that. But my counter to you, Brad, is: do you really want to disappoint Mo Seider? Don't you want to give him a friend?
I mean, we need to bring back the Swedish Mafia, though, and the way this draft is shaping up, we could take a pretty good Swede with our first 4 picks. So I think someone even tweeted that at us today and let chaos reign. We've been talking about the German Mafia getting built up in this draft. It could be the Swedish Mafia. This might be a misdirection. We've been looking at the wrong country.
What were you going to say, Evan?
I don't think the DEL plays any games before the draft.
No. And I think Raymond has 3 or 4 more games until the draft. So if he goes 0 in that, I might swing the other way. It's going to be wacky and it's weird, and I'm not fully confident in anything in this draft right now outside of who's going number 1.
We're at the point where Raymond had a shot on goal today, and that was a highlight. Just a normal shot on goal. It wasn't a bad shot on goal, but I was like, we really need this draft right now.
I really missed that game today. I didn't think they played today.
It might have just been an old one. It might have just been a clip pulled up from before.
Oh, I think I saw that one that was floating around. Yeah.
Anyhow, Tim Stützle, left winger / centerman out of Mannheim in the DEL. That is our prospect profile. We have 2 remaining.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.